Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting episode from the pages of that action-packed adventure novel by Bruno, The Amazing Flight of Aaron William Hawke. This is Illustrated Voices Theatre. I'm your host, Michael Northwood, here to whisk you away on an adventure like no other. In last week's adventure, you will recall we found our young adventurer, Aaron Hawke, perched high upon a blustery hilltop, preparing his massive, home-built glider for flight as he gathered the courage to leap into the vast nothing. So won't you join us in tonight's story as we ride along with Aaron as he takes flight and soars high into the boundless blue. But will his kite be strong enough to fulfill his dreams of true flight? Or will the windswept heavens prove to be too much for his winged craft? So make yourself comfortable and let your imagination soar as we ride along with Aaron in tonight's thrilling adventure, The Welcoming Sky, as read by none other than the award-winning narrator, Russel. Now, without further ado, let our story begin.
Aaron's sneakers skittered briefly over the tall grass, sending tiny insects and seedlings flying in all directions and leaving a shallow wake in its path. He felt the pull of gravity as the kite lifted him into the air. A breathless hollow formed in the pit of his stomach while he watched the grassy hillside fall away beneath his feet. Above the underbrush he rose, over the bushes, over the berms, above the trees, and into the open blue. Aaron was pulled upward by something stronger than his arms, and he felt lighter than air. He didn't expect that sensation, but he embraced it. Aaron felt more alive than he ever had before. The wind caressed his flesh like a warm hug. Smooth was the feel of the sky, silky and surfing over the air. The sky was clear and huge. It was vast beyond the clouds, a skyfall for the taking. A broad grin edged itself across Aaron's face. His pulse felt perfect. The sky felt like magic. And he thought,
"This is what dreams are made of."
The wind and the kite and the world around him coiled into a single joy that coursed through his veins. He cast his gaze down and took notice of the kite's angular shadow. It raced along like a pulsing heart on the undulating hillside below him. The fearless flyer's untried frame creaked and swayed along its upward path. And as Aaron rose into the blue, the weighty chains of his life fell away. Now, only this moment mattered. This very moment.
"I feel like I'm in another world,"
he whispered. He threw his legs to one side to correct his wing's heading. The kite responded, alive and almost weightless. As he ascended, the landscape's passing slowed to a gentle gait, and time slowed with it. His fear was now replaced by pure adrenaline-driven excitement. His heart shifted into a smoother rhythm, and Aaron could now collect his thoughts.
"Holy cow, this thing is actually flying, and not too bad if I say so myself."
The air funneled from the trailing edge of the sail, making a puttering sound like that of a small motorboat. The kite's wire rigging stretched taut and sang with the wind. A zither-like tone, it added a rich and shimmering harmony to his journey. And though he had not expected the effect, this sound was giving him a sense of relative airspeed. Not too slow, not too fast. It also gave him a sense of calm and control. Any lingering doubts about his craftsmanship had all but vanished. The fearless flyer was rigid, agile, and responsive. He felt safe, as though in the arms of a god.
"There's nothing up here, nothing to crash into. Only soft, puffy clouds,"
Aaron said.
"Just gotta keep my weight at the center. Keep her balanced and she'll fly straight and true."
The cool air washed over him and made him shiver. The air was biting but invigorating. It was like stepping from a warm shower and into an Arctic breeze without a towel. Aaron, however, was utterly captivated by the sensation of flying, to pay much attention to the sudden chill. His wing sliced through the sky, like cutting through a wave of liquid glass.
Man, this is like surfing. Frickin' awesome!
It had been a long time since he felt this good. His eyes explored the grassy hills as they passed slowly beneath him. The winds tugged back his open shirt, which flapped in harmony with the kite's sail.
Pop would be proud.
Memories tugged at his heart as his thoughts drifted back to the weekend trips with his dad. He could still hear his laughter as they flew his plane between the clouds to a distant lake to go camping or deliver some parts to another airport.
Hey Pop, I'm home,
he whispered with a grin. Flying meant everything to Aaron. It was also his father's passion, a shared passion. The sky was in their blood. But since his father's death last year, everything changed. A new town, a new school, a new life for him and his mother. But it all happened too fast. His life now was a jumbled mess, and this craft was the only thing that made sense. It had the structure and order he knew when he was younger, and Aaron longed to be that little boy again. This was the one place in his new life where he could breathe without feeling regret for just how different everything was now. And this adventure offered a brief lull from the turmoil he felt inside. A tranquil smile broke out across his face. Every cell in his body relaxed as he soared higher and higher above the earth. But Aaron knew his mother would not approve of such a wickedly cool adventure. He would have to be discreet. So Aaron's special project had to take place in an old garage he discovered only a few blocks from his house. Aaron fell in love with the abandoned, graffiti-covered and rat-infested garage as soon as he set foot inside. It only took a few days of cleaning up garbage, plugging up broken windows and patching walls. Fortunately, the grungy and smelly old building was home to enough rats, spiders and cobwebs to keep his mum and even the Justice League away. But it didn't stop Aaron from loving his awesome new workspace. All at once, a crosswind shoved Aaron's little wing like a schoolyard bully. Aaron snapped to attention. His instincts caused him to throw his weight to one side to correct his position. It worked. Now, high above the valley, he squinted toward the horizon and zeroed in on a thin band of silver that marked the distant sea.
It looks like it's about 5 miles away,
he analyzed. But in the meantime, Aaron did what any good pilot would do: hunt for potential landing areas along the way. Should the winds change unexpectedly, he might have to make a quick landing, and he knew his kite would need a good half-acre of open field to set down safely. He surveyed the valley through the milky morning haze.
I could put down over by Murphy's Pond if I had to, but I have to be careful of Hardwick's woods. Don't want to get caught up there.
Aaron caught sight of a flock of gulls in the distance, drifting in lazy circles in the morning sky.
Looks like they found some lift. That's a good sign.
The fearless flyer buffeted abruptly. The slopes of nearby Mount Zephyr provided some strong updrafts. It startled Aaron, and he snapped his attention back to the orange yarn tied to the front of his craft. It held stiff in the breeze.
Straight and level, and I'll be fine,
he reminded himself. Aaron's path took him over Port Reedley, the place where he and his mother now called home. The briny air reminded Aaron of how much he hated it here. He noticed the docks and small fishing trawlers tied up at the wooden piers. From up here, it looked less intimidating, as often new towns seem. But Port Reedley, and especially its high school, was still not a welcoming place for Aaron, at least not now.
Wait till those dumbass jerks at school find out about my flight. I doubt any of them have the guts to fly one of these.
His craft rose ever higher, higher than the surrounding hills, higher than even the local water tower. With the village far below, He could see the early risers driving about, doing errands, going here and there.
That looks like Mrs. Henderson's smoke-spewing heap. No doubt heading over to help at the church. She's an odd bird.
He smirked.
A Bible-thumping nag with a voice like a deranged parrot.
Even at this lofty height, Aaron spotted the steam floating from the rooftop vents of the downtown bakery. He imagined the smell of fresh-baked bread and pastries. His mouth watered.
Oh man, I gotta get some donuts to celebrate when I get back.
A young girl skateboarding in an empty schoolyard took notice of the flying oddity in the morning sky. From high above, Aaron's eyes locked onto her. She slowed her ride, hopped off her board and cocked her head in wonderment. She waved, wildly, shouting something that got lost in the space between them. Aaron could only nod as he sailed on. A boy, riding a bicycle, delivering newspapers, also paused and looked up and pointed.
Oh my god, I'm frickin' Superman! Whoa, whoa!
He shouted into the empty sky. He continued gliding towards the thin band of shimmering blue in the distance. The wind continued to rumble past his ears.
It'll be a long walk home after I land, but it'll be worth it.
Beyond the village, Aaron could just see Hardwick's woods.
Ooh, the trees look like bushes. I must be at least 1,000 feet up.
Aaron was a pro at estimating altitude, a skill he learned from his many flights with his father in his Cessna. But this time, he was the pilot. The experience was more enjoyable than he had hoped it would be. He sailed along with the gentle rise and fall of the atmospheric currents and joyfully took in his surroundings. Suddenly, he caught sight of a shadowy something out of the corner of his eye. The broad wings of a black hawk drifted towards him. It studied Aaron like an unexpected intruder in his territory. The majestic bird flanked his right side. It was so big and so real, so perfect, and so magnificently there that Aaron screamed.
Hello!
Shouted Aaron.
Nice day for flying, wouldn't you say? Ha!
He glanced around.
So find any good air currents today?
The hawk barely took notice. It cocked his head to give Aaron a sidelong look, as if to say, amateur. With a few graceful strokes of its wings, the bird flew off. In all his excitement, Aaron failed to notice that the wind had suddenly stopped and the fearless flyer was about to stall out. His left wing dropped, sending him in a downward spiral. The deafening wind roared past Aaron's ears and made his wide eyes water. The kite's sail thrashed violently and threatened to shred under the increased forces.
Crap! This is bad!
Below him, all he saw was Hardwick's woods, its thick groves of trees growing larger as he approached. Aaron arched his spine and thrust his legs as far back as his body would allow. Muscles stretched and wrenched with pain, but the fearless flyer continued its downward plunge. His muscles strained, but he could feel the wind pushing back. The wing sail had billowed, but it wasn't enough to pull him up. Aaron's body tensed and his fists locked onto the bamboo poles with a vice-like grip. He knew if he moved or looked down, that would be the end of him. Suddenly, its sail filled with air, and his craft pulled up and out of its deadly dive, its bamboo frame bending dangerously. But the kite had no air brakes, and Aaron was going way too fast to land. There was no way to bleed off speed other than to gain altitude.
Hold together, baby! Please!
Aaron's words strained. The speeding craft leveled out just above the treetops. Their upper branches streaked beneath his shoes like a freight train at full speed. Aaron squinted through watering eyes, then spotted an ominous sight. A massive limb atop a large old oak tree, looming dead ahead. It was like the gnarled appendage of some mythical creature, a huge, claw-like hand frozen high in the air for hundreds of years, with the promise of one day capturing its prey. Without hesitation, he tucked his legs up tightly. Swoosh! The limb missed his butt, barely. Up and over the oak he flew. The fearless flyer climbed and slowed considerably, so much so it was on the verge of stalling out again. He angled the nose downward to gain airspeed. All of a sudden, Aaron found himself swallowed up by an opening in the dense forest of trees. He rocketed through the clearing, just inches above the carpet of ferns. The kite's sail flapped like a motorboat. He found himself surrounded by a wall of massive oaks. Their twisted trunks rose high above him. Their mazy, interlocking branches imprisoned him in this cavernous clearing.
No escape.
He had to think fast. He threw his legs forward, dropping the nose and rocketing just above the slope of the hill. With lightning speed, he assessed the terrain, then aimed for a small clearing near the trunks of the trees with just enough space between them for his craft. Aaron bolted just inches above the ground. His breath trapped in his lungs as he twisted and contorted his body, banking his craft left, then right, then left again, zigzagging his way through the giant chessboard of trees with all the grace and skill of an Olympic skier.
Oh, a patch of blue!
He called out. He shifted his weight and angled the kite's nose upward to a small open portal of sky and darted through. He levelled his wings and glanced over his shoulder and watched the wooded hillside fade into the hazy night. The wild fury settled, and the wind hushed to a reasonable volume. Aaron released his trapped breath.
Holy God, that was close.
A victorious grin drew slowly across his face. Without warning, a crosswind buffeted his craft. Aaron's heart skipped. The air grew warm, and he could feel pressure building inside his ear.
Huh?
He tilted his head. He felt a subtle tug of gravity as the fearless flyer ascended.
Thermal,
he whispered.
Well, this isn't so bad. This could give me the altitude I need to make it to the beach.
He threw his legs to the side to make his craft orbit within the bubble of rising air. Suddenly, the heart-stopping noise just above his head sent a shockwave through his body.
Holy God, what was that?
He looked up at the bamboo pole that ran the length of the kite's sail. There was a small crack where it attached to the support pole. Slowly, he tilted his head down, and all at once was keenly aware of just how much sky was between him and the ground. The century-old trees looked like bushes, and roads were ant trails. Fear embraced him like a boa constrictor, stealing the wind from his lungs. 1,000 thoughts spun through his head.
Maybe the trees had done some damage, or the lifting forces of the thermal were too much for the kite.
Whatever the reason, it did not matter now. Aaron feared the framework's crossbar was about to fail. With a sickening snap, the pole gave way, and like a butterfly's wing, the entire craft folded in half.
No, 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 no!
His words came out in quick, sharp breaths.
I can't die. My mother will never forgive me.
Panic drove his thoughts.
I can't die. I don't want to die.
Adrenaline rushed through his veins. The sky, which had been so welcoming, had betrayed him with a vengeance. The frigid air roared past him with the force of a hurricane. He wanted it to stop, but his body was paralyzed. A misty tunnel slowly encircled his vision as sparkles of light danced in front of him. His thoughts drained into nothingness, and he could only watch the rapidly approaching treetops leering up at him, ready to swallow him in an unspeakable death.
Will Aaron survive his deadly plunge to Earth, or will he be dashed to bits in the forest below? Who will save our young adventurer? Find out in our next episode entitled, Wait, What? We hope you enjoyed tonight's story, and if so, please do us a favor and subscribe to our channel and give us a jolly old thumbs up. And be sure to click on the link below to obtain your very own copy of this exciting children's story. On behalf of Illustrated Voice Radio Theatre, a most gracious thank you to all. This is your announcer, Michael Northwood, wishing you a good night and pleasant dreams.